La Lanterna, a spotlight in Italian football, is a podcast that dives into the beautiful game seen from the eyes of two fans from the oldest team in Italy's point of view. My name is Fabrizio Cardone, Canadian and Genovese, together with my friend Matt Killen, an American-born and Genoa fan. Every week, we'll tell you all you need to know about the only team you need to know about, Genoa CFC. Plus, we'll have guests and provide updates from around the magical world of Italian football. Benvenuti alla Lanterna podcast. This is Fabrizio with my best buddy,
Matt. Fabry, we've got news to break finally after a slow summer.
Is this or not? I'm just going to pull it like straightforward. Is this or not, so far anyways, the best signing of the entire Serie A?
I think so. I've been messaging some of my friends like this is the signing of the transfer window, and people are kind of like, huh? If you're not paying attention to football, really. But I mean, there was only a couple of months ago where Retegui was taking the world by storm, and I guess we're bearing the lead. So today, for any Genoano that does not know, which I'm sure everyone does, but hopefully that's why you're here, Retegui, I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly, officially signed for Genoa. He was rumored to be a Genoa player for some time. There's really exciting news. Was it like Friday when there was the word that El Principe himself was having the conversation with him and persuading him to come to Genoa, which is pretty incredible.
Well, I don't know if it's like exactly in that terms, which would be amazing anyways, but for sure, El Principe, Diego Milito, had put a word into him, something with respects to the fact of go to Genoa. It's a team, an environment that pumps you, and I did amazing. Actually, Milito came twice to Genoa.
That's true.
Because of the relegation. No, we're not going to talk about that. Down to Serie C back in the day, but yeah, so he came to Genoa two times, and then after that he did that famous triplete with Mourinho, which all the Juventini fan hate at the Inter. So it was a good spell for him. And what how can I say this? Who could not be the best ambassador to Genoa than Diego Milito himself?
I mean, he has to be. And actually, that team reminds me, I mean, probably the last time the best team in Europe was from Italy. That 2010 Inter team was, I think, demonstrably the best team in football that year.
I have to say so, yes. I agree with you 100%.
But amazing news. So there's all of this. He seems like he's traveling to Italy. He's on his way. That whole thing, the past several days, medical exams happening, we think.
So let's backtrack 1 second for who doesn't necessarily, who is like just fell off, the planet's different planet and came onto Earth for a second. But essentially, Retegui or Retegui, however you want to pronounce it. I personally don't know. I'm not a big Spanish speaker. However, which reminds me, maybe we should have a guest from, there is a club, General Club Argentina. Maybe we should, I don't know.
Oh, we should totally do that. Yes, especially with the Boca.
Not too sure how their English is. That's a problem. But
yeah.
I have to commend 100% to the efforts and the determination of whatever happened in the background with respects to the signing of this player. So Mateo Retegui, who is 24 years old. I'll give you the stats a little bit later, but he has been called up by Roberto Mancini, our arch nemesis from, whatever it is. But anyways, he's now the coach of Italy.
Yes.
And everybody told him off of going and finding a striker abroad, even though he did have the passport Argentine and Italian and so on. Why not fishing in the pool of Italy, Serie A? Barely touches Serie B, and he went all the way out there. He played a couple of matches, and every match he played, or two or three, I can't remember, but he scored at least once every match. And everybody had his name on the agenda. And let me add to that, Inter, Milan were all in the likes of, inquiring at least with respects to, can we sign this player or not? And what happened? He comes to Genoa. only one thing, and I'll leave it to you after this, but a lot of different fans from different teams are not understanding why. And I'm going to say, live with it. And that's how it is.
I mean, yeah, fuck them, I guess, is what I would say.
Yeah. I want to be a little bit more polite, but yeah.
I mean, so for me, I don't know about you. Sometimes with the transfer stuff, there's these names, and you hear this buzz, and you hear a scout or something, and then it really snowballs. And Retegui is a little bit different, of course, because he played for the Italian national team, and I think that, for me anyway, that was my first ever hearing about him, was basically this past March. And as you were saying, there's been kind of a problem in the Italian team with having like a proper forward for years. I mean, Luca Toni, I guess, is how far back this problem goes, I think. Maybe even farther than that. And so in comes this player, Retegui, who's playing for Tigre in Argentina, actually on loan from Boca. So wasn't even playing for Boca Juniors this past year.
Neither the one before, right?
I'm not sure he did play, right? But he comes in and he makes an impact. He scores a goal against England, which is always going to win you attention and some support.
For sure, for sure, that one.
And then I think there was another game. I can't remember the order of these games, so forgive me. But there was another European match against a lesser team, like not a Macedonia or something, but maybe. And then he scored in that match too. And so all of a sudden it's like, wait, who is this Retegui player? What's going on? Like, is this now the spark that the Italian team have needed for all this time? And so, when the rumor started with Genoa, I could understand maybe some people being, I don't quite get this, because there's this incendiary kind of thing going with his name, and it seems like his stock is really, really rising. But like, when you put the pieces together, I don't know how it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Like, he's going to be playing in an environment week in and week out that is professional. I guess you could say it in that way. Genoa fans are psycho, they're crazy, they're loud. Every time he's at home, it's going to feel like he's actually playing for some fucking fans. He's not going to Sassuolo, he's not going to these places that maybe are decent development places, but you're playing in front of farmers. I don't know what the hell's going on over there. Like, no one's out of their seats. You're actually in an environment where there's a cauldron, where there's passion, where things can go either way. They could go wrong. You're going to be playing with a manager who was one of the better strikers in Italian football.
Look at that. One of the best strikers for Italy is the actual coach of the striker for Italy.
Right. So you have that. Obviously, of course, you're going to be easily visible for the national team coach, but other Italian, clubs will offer the same. And you're going to be a really focal part of this team. You're not going to go over to a Juve and have to come off in the 70th minute or be sent on loan again to Monza or something. Like, that's not your outcome. Your outcome is you are the focal point of this team. I think probably most Genoano sort of understand this may be something. We have 2 or 3 years of Retegui, and that's it. Maybe that's all this thing is. But the opportunity is there, and I think the exciting thing with us is it's kind of consistent with, I think, how we saw ourselves even at some point in the Preziosi era when our academy was really working. Now, obviously, like, Retegui's not an academy player, but this is consistent with, we're getting young talent, we're giving them a platform, we're letting them kind of grow their game and challenge themselves. And I think Genoa, not only because of being thrust into the spotlight and having to be a star player, but also because of the fan expectations, it adds a dynamic that helps prepare a player. And I don't mean to say we're a step-on club, but like, it helps prepare you for those moments, because they are big moments. The games matter to us. It doesn't always necessarily, I'm not saying it doesn't feel that way with other fans, but I think there's a difference when you see smoke bombs going off 20 minutes before the match starts and 40 flags everywhere and the whole stadium turning dark and doing sounds to Guasta d'Amore and stuff. Like, that's different. That's a different environment to get ready to prepare for a match. And he's coming from Argentina too, where we're also playing in front of crazy crowds and stuff. It's not like he's never done that. But I think there's a lot of valid points with how Genoa can help springboard him. And the hope is we do that and we start establishing ourselves. Because I have to believe, if you're 777, I know we have this like club constellation model where we can pick from hair to Berlin or something, I guess. But I don't really know how we're going to consistently really be successful if we are not doing an incredible job in buying and ultimately selling on promising talent. I think that's
listen, let me just jump in there for a second. Serie A's transfer market has been like dreadful, boring. Yes. You can barely see any signing, and if not, no signing with any big name, if not on the exit side. The only one, so just trying to compare this to say, for the likes of AC Milan, only they made a little bit of a market after the selling of Tonali.
Right.
So once they sold Tonali to EPL and cashed in, I think it was like 60 or 70 mil, only then they were able to make a market. So what I'm trying to say with this is like, if Milan has to do something like that, let's don't confuse with what, as you mentioned before, what Preziosi, our former president before the 777 group, did with selling every player every 3-4-7 and having a consistent roundabout and merry-go-round of players coming in, coming out, like, every 3 seconds. Even I was listening to these pods from Italy and so on, and they're talking high and lows, good and bad. Retegui for the fact of, that's not the Spurs model. Spurs model was supposed to be all the way up to 5-6 mil and then do it from there. So this 15 is out of his model. And so I'm like, you know what? Retegui is not a bet. Retegui is a pure, simple investment. And it's actually an investment that everybody wanted to do, on top of the fact that what you said, rightfully so, rather than going to a larger team for now anyways, with respect to the fact of going to like a Napoli, a Inter, a Milan or whatnot, and play, as you said, coming in on the 70th or 80th or even so, and then try to score only then and there. This time around, you're going to be the king, hence the media manager from Genoa that did the card thing, which was beautiful, by the way.
That was pretty well done. Yeah.
If you have a chance, go and
our admin is like world class. I feel like the Genoa admins are phenomenal.
If you haven't had a chance to see it, go and check Genoa CFC's Instagram, Twitter, and whatnot, and you can see what we're talking about. But essentially, he can be, truthfully so, the king of Genova altogether. So yeah, I don't see him as a bet. I see him as an investment. I think that is the model that the 777 wants to follow. And I think they know that they made that quote unquote, I'm going to say this like quote unquote error 2 years ago, when we got bought out from them, not investing in a true striker, relying on Destro, hoping that he would be the striker of the year. But they know that they have to invest in it, because we are in Serie A now. So it's it's very different compared to before.
It is definitely a different environment. And I really hope there were people that, if there were folks criticizing the increase in budget spend and all this stuff, hopefully those weren't other Genoa fans. Because I remember this summer last year, everyone was scared shitless because we hadn't hardly spent anything. And are we going to be able to get out of Serie B? Did we do enough? We brought a bunch of old guys. Is that going to be sufficient? Seems like it could be, but who knows? Obviously,
we're not there yet. I think there's still going to be at least 2 or 3 new players going to come in. We don't know yet. Yeah. Besides, everybody knows that if anybody has been following calcio in general, in any country for that matter, I think the better deals, unfortunately, are done towards the end of the transfer market. So that means at the end of August. Having said that, 50 million plus bonuses, 4-year contract plus 1 optional. It was interesting, again, the Mugugni from the Genoani talking about, the president was not confirming him in different press releases, saying and being vague about it. Listen, I really, really like the approach that 777 overall, of the club actually overall is taking with respect to being honest, direct, and straightforward. So when he said there is no confirmation of any signing, he was being honest about the truth that he hadn't signed at that point.
That's what it was. It's just I don't know. It's obviously, as a Genoa fan, it's very exciting today. I think we have a new potential, really exciting player. You can watch some of his highlights, of course, from some of his recent games, either in Argentina or in European competitions. we were pinching ourselves last season when we had more of an attacking play. And if we have kind of this, Eddie on our kind of group chat was saying earlier, like more of like a fox in the box type player who we've kind of had a little bit of, I guess, in different like ways over the past couple of years. But if we really have, that sharp end of the attack with Retegui kind of being that player, it's exciting. And I think there's some kind of stuff swirling around in the media too about, the importance of Serie A and Italian players. And I think there's something obviously to that too. I don't think we need to like lean into the national story so much, but I mean, at the end of the day, to your point, you see all these players, it's kind of a total shame, Tonali leaving for Newcastle United, like that's the state of the world that we're in. Like the great grand AC Milan, like potential Champions League finalists a year ago, and now you're going to join this other club that has now a whole lot more money thanks to their ownership. Who
not only the league but also the ownership, yeah,
and well, of course, the league too. But I mean, look, I don't want to get into that because I'll get on a whole other rant about like modern football and everything else.
Let's don't get to that.
I don't think
not for this episode.
We can have another episode about that. But the point being is we have a player, we've got another Italian player in the squad. It's something to, I think, be proud of. It'll be really exciting to see what happens, and I think if this does turn out to be a great signing, it'll be something we'll come back to often and say how wonderful it was that we were able to convince him, demonstrate the project that is there. And again, this is actually like a really important kind of moment, I think, in the 777 cycle, because if you're able to demonstrate Retegui as a player that grows, you're going to be on other people's radar. And
that's a good point.
That's something that if it doesn't work out, I don't think it means like now we're just going back to Serie B forever or something. But all of a sudden, like when you have other players who are in that category, okay, well, this group is running Genoa. They have a couple other clubs. And that would be really, really beneficial, of course, for us. So
no, you bring up a valid good point, not only for the fact of the media type of exposure that Genoa has been receiving thanks to the signing of Retegui, but also the fact of, let's remember that this player with a whole bunch, the complexity, I'm not even going to get into his signing and so on, with apparently several agents and so on, but the fact that if he chose Genoa, there's a reason behind that. It's not that he got sucked into it. So it's not that only Genoa chose him, but he also chose Genoa.
I mean, he had a number of choices, and as you mentioned earlier, Inter were rumored to be one of them. So it wasn't just. I mean, who knows? I guess the speculation on what other offers were on the table, but still, I think there was a lot of assumption that there were many options available for the player. So
that's right. A couple more things about Retegui. Tomorrow, for whomever is in Genova, and tomorrow, what I mean for, I don't know when we're able to put this on air, but probably today is Wednesday for us, Wednesday night. On Thursday in Piazza de Ferrari, whoever is in Genova, I hope you are going there to be able to reach out to him, talk to him, see him or something, whatever he's going to be doing in Piazza de Ferrari. Second thing I wanted to talk to you about is Coda. Now, does that mean he's out the door? Does that mean he will be his mentor? Or does that mean he will now be his backup? He, as in Coda, will be Retegui's backup? Does that mean what number is he going to pick? Because if you look at the social media presentation, he did wear the jersey. Yes. We did see him wearing the kit, so the home kit. But when he turned around, his name was there, but no number was there.
Those terrible lease plan sponsors were confirmed again, of course, too, in the lower back. It just haunts us for years and years.
Yeah, I was going to talk about the sponsors in a second. But yeah, no number was there. What do you think about that?
It's a really good question. I don't know. I mean, I'm more on the camp that I think probably Coda goes. I mean, he could play either role, right? Like he could be in the squad and kind of in this mentor position and probably actually starting more of the matches and letting Retegui kind of find his form. It seems a little bit odd, and maybe this is part of the plan. We pay a pretty decent chunk to acquire Retegui. We could maybe get a little bit of that back for Coda, maybe not a lot, I guess, is market value.
Well, I think if my memory serves me well, we got Coda for $1.5 million with something about that again for.
That's true.
his wage, but I think you can still sell him for about the same, if not for $1 million, to whomever is interested drastically to come back to Serie A. So it's like a win-win situation if you want to do that. All depends. We have a 2 or 3 year contract, I think, with him. All depends really what the club has between him and the club, what they have talked about, what they have spoken about, what their intentions are. I think the club is quite open to understand whomever is there and willing to fight for the, for the cause and whatnot, and they're willing to protect the players no matter what. Anyways, I think time will tell, essentially. Now, talking about Cota and Retegui quickly, I want to talk about what do you think now with Retegui coming in? Should or will the formation change? What I mean by the formation, sorry, I should say it better. The actual model, so 3-4-3. People are talking about this 3-4-3, which I don't think it's necessary. Gilardino's what he has in mind, but also a lot depends on what players you have.
Well, it definitely does raise an interesting question, and I think Gilardino was quoted a couple of times. This has been a rumor for a long enough time, where pretty regular question that he was also getting at the podium. And I think at one point he was also, what I liked about the way he handled it, and similar to your point earlier, was that it seemed like he was very much in line with where management was in their decision-making process. It was kind of like, yeah, if it happens, it happens. You kind of wonder a little bit. I'm sure he was excited and wanted this to happen, but it does feel a little, to your point, like slightly against how you would typically trot the team out last season. Maybe that was just because of the players that we had. 3-5-2, I feel like, which is what we saw the most often towards the end of the season. I don't know if that really suits Retegui that well. I mean, I guess it could. He could be up there as one of the 2 strike partnership pairs. But for some reason, it feels like he would be playing in more of a 4-3-2-1 or maybe a 4-3-3 type of a formation. But neither of those, to your point, were really where Gilardino found success last season. So I don't really know, actually. I mean,
it'll be interesting.
Yeah, because I could see him playing. I don't know as much about his assist-making kind of prowess. I guess he did have like a handful of assists that he registered when he was in Argentina.
Definitely was served very well with a 4-4-2 scenario, but all depends on the players at the end, right?
I think he only had 1 assist in the Argentinian division last year, but 1 assist to 11 goals. But yes, I agree with you. I think like the player combination is interesting. He is a relatively bigger stature player. I'm not totally sure it's going to be like pinging long crosses into him though, as much as it is like kind of trying to play him in the box. So yeah, it will be interesting to see if we end up changing kind of our ways. It did seem like Gilardino for sure was very adaptable in the way that he decided to kind of, even with that 3-5-2, it oftentimes seemed like it was, you saw more rotation in the back and players kind of moving in and out of the midfield and the defense, depending on whether or not we were in possession or out of possession or where the ball was. And so
that's how we fell in love with Alberto Gilardino, right? The fact that he managed to adapt himself to the different situations based on not only the opponent, but also based on the players that he had.
Right. So let's hope we see more of that. And yes, I guess your question before we started the podcast, our next upcoming, I think it's our next one, or it's at least our first big one of the preseason tour. I think it's behind closed doors against Monaco.
No, it's not. No. So let's quickly, let me just backtrack 1 second. Quickly talk about, we did in the last podcast quickly talk about the Genoa versus the Fassa team that won 12-0. Then right after our pod, there was a Genoa Tirol, WSG Tirol, where Busquets went on loan, and unfortunately that did not happen. So let's keep in mind also for the match that we're about to talk about right after that one, which is against Venezia, that this step within the preparation had to skip based on the fact that there was a very terrible storm, almost like a tornado type of thing, and that game had to be canceled, and that was on July 18th. Now, on July 22nd, I believe, I don't quote me on that one, it was on the weekend, we had to face our very first bigger match itself against Venezia. So that ended 1-4, or in other words, a win for Venezia. These are pre-season matches. a lot of tests happening. You might start with your starting 11. Mind you that a lot of new players are still not there, or the new quote unquote are the ones that we're looking for. Yes. And also some players were not even available. For example, Hefty had some issues with family issues, and that's why he was not on the pitch. So in lieu of him, Sabelli came in, Biraski, I'm sorry.
Yep.
And so on. Like what I'm trying to say is like it was not necessarily Badel was not there. So in lieu of him, we had Frendrup and so on. And right up front, we had Puskas and Gudmundsson. Anyways, not to give any expectations or nevertheless any excuses to what happened. I can't remember now the name of the referee, but he was quite known to be one that was like not necessarily the best referee, but that doesn't matter. We shouldn't even say that necessarily, because if they are there, they're still valid refs. And the strange thing was within 25 minutes of the first half, he gave 4 penalty kicks, 2 per side, where we did not score one, which was, I think it was the first one, but it was right after a Venezia one. And Gudmundsson just kicked it almost like at an amatorial level, almost like passing it to the goalie. Anyways, and the first half ended 1-2. Then you get the whole revamp of the entire team. Basically, maybe 1 or 2 remained the same, including the goalie, mind you. Mm-hmm. And then their 2 goals came, which were very flukes of the moment and so on, like from outside. Anyways, I'm thinking and hoping that there were a lot of tests that were done. At the same time, I know for a fact that there was a very heavy load on the actual preparation. So what I'm saying is that the match was not, the training was not necessary for the match. Up until the match, it was more on preparation for the season itself. Not necessarily all the players were ready, quote unquote, ready for the actual match itself. Sorry, I'm rambling a little bit about this, but
no, but I mean, look, the point of this stuff, like, I think when you watch these score lines and we all pay attention to them, we've had some not so close matches and the defeats are pretty heavy. And so, some of these games you can access via torrent online. Sometimes you're just seeing the final score, depending on what you're doing. But there's probably a sense of like, what the fuck? When you see we lost by 3 goals to Venezia, who are still in Serie B, and all this other stuff that's going on. But the reality is, as you mentioned, like really clearly, you don't get any sort of prizes for having an undefeated preseason record. Means absolutely nothing. The managers are typically more likely to be very experiential in what they're trying to do. Experimental in what they're trying to do. Trying different players in different spots, trying different formations, trying to get the teams geared up and be successful. I know that, and Gila also had this comment, I think, after the prior week's defeat. He's going to be a little harder on the guys, maybe. There's something that you kind of recognize and need to kind of whip into shape. These are the moments when you want those corrections to be made.
That's right.
You don't see too much of this, obviously, but still.
No, you're absolutely right. Actually, that's to your point and to what Gilardino said. It's good to have these now. I mean, he didn't really say it in these words, but I'm adding to it. It's good that certain bad results, I'm going to say like very lightly bad, so don't quote me on that one, but some bad results happen now, so it's more prominent and obvious of where the help is needed.
Yeah.
Having said that, not to the summer numbers, the results don't really mean anything, the tests and whatnot. And let's not forget what the change that Venezia had since the arrival of their new coach, which will be leading them in the next season. And personally, from what I've seen, again, it's a summer match itself, but I really think they are one of the contenders for the top 2.
Could be.
Let's not forget what they did all like in the last 10, I'm going to say, matches itself. From lower table, they went all the way to playoff spot, right? So it's something to keep in. I mean, I'm not, again, they're not excuses. Anyways.
Yes.
On top of that, we talked about the Maturo, we talked about Lipani and so on. Just quick note, Lipani, what do you think? Should he stay? Should he go?
I would like him to stay, but I also don't think he's ready to start. So maybe that's a little irresponsible. I mean, I think like him going on and playing at another Serie B side, if we loan him, like I don't think it makes sense to loan him out in Serie A. I just don't get that. Like if you're going to do that, you may as well just have him stay with the squad, get experience, even if he does come on in like the 60th minute or something, whatever. You're still training with the team. I like him. He's young. I think game experience is a really important thing right now. That's why I think a loan is probably the best decision. It would be fun to have him in the squad. We had him in most of the matches for last season in Serie B. And I think he could provide something actually useful for the Serie A squad. But I think there's also I don't know if they're going to have him available for every game. Like there's some considerations there too that maybe are out of our hands. And I don't know. I think he probably will be loaned. What are your thoughts?
I'm on the fence on this one, meaning I can see both sides being very valuable for the fact that if he does get loaned out, he is going to gain experience. He's going to grow, and that's definitely what he needs. While if he stays in Genoa, he'll definitely play a lot less. Everything really depends on if we consider him to be the next Badel. The good thing is if he stays with us, he will learn to play the Genoa way, assuming that Gilardino will stay for us for a long time. He will learn from the best, at least in a top X number amount of players in that role, because nobody can really complain about who and what Badel has done so far.
Yep.
I can see positivities on both sides. While if you are loaned out, you can also lose your way depending if this team is going to make you play or not. That can be tied into contracts, of course. But or you can pull a Rovella where you kind of like keep him, and then he becomes your starting 11 based on the fact that then due to injuries and so on, you show yourself being valid enough. And I wish we had Rovella back, honestly.
So that was another sad one with him going. I mean, that whole thing, because that was a really protracted kind of loan back type situation and everything else. That's probably the best argument for keeping him, is that when you look, we're not having Sturaro back, right? You've got Stroman, you've got Frendrup, you've got Badel. We've had other players kind of come in. Again, it does very much depend on the formation that Gilardino wants to use. But I think when you look at our midfield, we're kind of a little long in the tooth, as the American phrase goes. Probably a little older and therefore maybe susceptible to injury. And having a player who seems competent, who has had experience at least playing in very high-level competition in the Under-20 World Cup, and of course a little bit for us too. There's an argument to be made there for sure. I would want him to be more than just, well, if these other three guys get hurt.
No, I agree. I mean, obviously they will have conversations and himself will have to decide what his future is alongside with the club, because you don't want to ruin a player at that level anyways.
Right.
So sponsors. So we just presented a new sponsor. I'm not sure about apologize for that, the pronunciation. It's from Axpo Italy. So Axpo is a very well-known, not well-known, I don't know, but it's a known energy company out in the world. And their sub-company called Pulse, I don't know, from Italy is the sponsor itself. A lot of people were complaining about Lamia Liguria, we don't want it, and so on. It kind of appeared in the last few days on the training shirts. So you see Casa della Salute, which is the CDS that you see on the training one. But then you saw the Lamia Liguria. So I was saying to them, well, if I see it on the training jersey, I doubt it will be on the main, but we'll see. On top of that, it was interesting just to note the outfits that were for the friendlies, and which was using the blue jersey with the red shorts, which comes from an old song, from a Genoa song. Pantaloni rossi, la maglietta blu.
That's right.
With the Portofino logo, Portofino yacht or whatnot.
Which I thought looked pretty nice, by the way.
I think so. I
know that's not going to be our primary sponsor. I'm sure that.
No, and it was interesting that against the Fassa team, we had the Genoa crest in the original format, the red and blue, while against the we didn't see it against the Tirol from Austria, but against Venezia, it was similar to what Castore had, which was not the red and blue. It was like, I don't know, I can't remember. It was like a whitish, all white, like I thought it was like clever. Anyways, we'll see what happens. Also, to your point that we kind of like went all on the bandwagon about the conversations here, but the next friendly will be at Marassi this Saturday. It will be at, I think, if I'm not mistaken, at 8:30 p.m. local time, which is 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah, for us.
It's open doors. I think the tickets are on sale, and the numbers will be whatever, because during the summer it's hard to get people to get there. The prices are not even too high or whatnot, but it'll be interesting. And quickly going back to the Venezia game, it's interesting to see some analogies that people have brought up. The fact that we have lost against the Serie B side 4-1, but when we were in Serie B, we won 4-1 against the Serie A side, which was Lazio, who finished second in the league, and we won the league. Sorry, we were promoted to Serie A. So that probably means also that Venezia is going to go to Serie A, and we're going to finish second. No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, it was amazing. Kind of a cute analogy. Then a few quick things so we can wrap up. So extracomunitari, which means non-European passport. The FIGC has expanded the fact that both Switzerland and England can be part of that. So they're not part of the spots of the outside of Europe anymore. So our Hefty is part of a European player.
Which basically is important, of course, because otherwise he might not be able to be registered and therefore couldn't play. It would be like the worst case scenario. I mean, I don't think that would have happened anyway, but like essentially we don't have any
essentially problem. It means that it frees up a spot from an outside of Europe perspective.
Oh, okay. I got you. So it's
like your Maturo perspective or your Vasquez perspective and so on.
Yeah.
Let me see here. What I wanted to talk about quickly is Genoa Primavera. We're finally in Primavera 1, which is the Serie A for Primavera. The actual calendar has come out. The first matches are going to be against Torino, against Fiorentina, which kind of similarly to our first match for our main Genoa team, and the third one is going to be against Verona. So look after those ones. 28th of August, 3rd of September, 17th of September. Then quick news is about Genoa women. There has been 7 signings, so that's quite a movement with respect to the intentions of how they want to play with respects to the next season. 2 might be more even coming up. And on the other side, the other team, so the Blu Cerchiati, the Blu Smerdati, or however you want to call them, the Ciclisti, news just a few days ago came that the Sampdoria women ceased to exist.
After all that, the woman of the sea and everything, and then
exactly to my point. So just for who didn't know, Sampdoria had their campaign for the jersey with the women of the sea, and then a few days later of that presentation, they actually say, you know what, Sampdoria women now is dismantled. So they had a spot in Serie A, and it's gone. They're gone.
Toast.
So season tickets from today. Essentially, the sales are free, no more related to the fact if you had a past season ticket or not. Before this went on free, I think the ticket numbers were around 18,000. And since the tickets went on sale today for everyone, there was another signing of another 700-800 tickets only today again. So the target of the club is to be 25,000. And let's see what we can do. So right now, seems that we're in the orders of 18,000. Last year, we did 20. What else to say? I guess we only have one more thing that I wanted to cover, unless you have anything else there, Matt. But essentially, we have Coppa Italia. So everything is going to be, sorry, we had the talking about the match against AS Monaco is going to be on Saturday. We're going to have one more the week after against Cremonese. It all is going to lead to the first official match, which is official now. It's going to be against Modena for Coppa Italia on Friday, August 11th at 9 p.m. local, which is 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for us. And that's August 11th. That's coming up closely.
We are putting out there for anybody in New York, we might be doing a meetup to watch that game. TBC. So yeah, exciting. First game of the season. 2 weeks away. 2 weeks from Friday.
And that's Coppa Italia, mind you. And then a couple of weeks after that, or a week after that, it's going to be the season opener against Fiorentina for the Serie A. Season 2023-2024. Well, I guess we are at a wrap, Matt. We're going to be tuning in for any news and so on. I think right now during the summer, we're going to still keep this 2-week thing. But obviously, if there's anything upcoming important, we're definitely going to step in and pump it up a little bit. Mm-hmm. But we will always be here giving you the news of Genoa. So don't forget about us. Actually, go on our social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Follow us on those channels. Drop us a comment. Obviously, put a like there so we can follow us and, everything like that. The usual things on social media that everybody has to say. I don't have this line memory and so on. But never forget, per sempre and comunque, forever and always, Forza Genoa. You've listened to La Lanterna, a spotlight on Italian football, a podcast powered by Genuani Si Resta. Thank you for listening and see you next week.